All right, guys, so today we're going to talk about printing batches in the context of teleport, because a lot of people are misusing it, and we want to show you how to use it appropriately so that it can actually help you inside of starting up your business. Now, batching is a really great tool that a lot of people use in order to get cheaper pricing on teleport. We're going to talk about that here a little bit more in just a second. But it can also be a way to create a set. Rather than printing a bunch of individual pieces right here, you can just print out the whole set of pieces in one go. Now, like I said, this is basically a cheat within teleport, because if you were printing several different pieces, each individually, they would be slightly more expensive than if you are printing them all together in a single batch. And that's actually perfectly reasonable. If you're doing some simple little part here where you have some main piece, and then a couple of small little side pieces, putting them all together into a single STL and then having them printed is totally fine, because then they can all be bagged up as one and they're not like individual bags for each individual part. Now, here is the issue though. What a lot of people are doing is they are creating scenarios like this, where they upload several hundred tiny little parts as one single batch. And the issue with that is that when you print as a batch, you have a really high probability of one of these going wrong. And if one of them goes wrong, then you ruin the whole batch and it has to be reprinted. And when you print as a batch where there's nothing on the build plate like this, you end up with a pile of parts like this to where people are trying to count out 200 of these things. And that is unreasonable quality control because we just can't maintain it. But going forward into the future, it is on our roadmap to address batching and teleport. Right now, putting multiple parts on a build plate is a little bit cheaper than printing them individually. We are going to change that. Multiple parts on a build plate will eventually become more expensive. So if you want to build a sustainable business, you need to figure out how to do this reliably. Otherwise, pricing may change on you in the future to where it could hurt you. So we're going to talk about how to do this well so it's better. Now, the wrong way to do it is to upload them like this and just put them on a print bed bare. The reason this is bad is because one can fail, one can get lost. If you have several hundred parts, if one of them can fail, you should put 10 or 12 extras on here, because number one, it's good for your customer, and number two, if one of them fails and we can't see it because it's tough to count to 200 with little itty bitty pieces, you have spares inside of the bag so that people don't have to worry about it. So if you need to include a bunch of extra parts on there, put a couple on there, because it won't radically increase the cost of your part, but it ensures there's spares for your customers and there's spares inside of the print in case something is missed in quality control and checking. Because again, we use human checking on this, and humans cannot tell if one is missing or if they're all there, especially when after it's knocked off the build plate, it looks like this. The other thing also, we have tried to use AI style of solutions for checking this. But again, like this, the AI can't compare it to the 3D model because the 3D model is really structured and this is hiding all of them. So it can't automatically count a pile of parts. So those are the reasons that we have to get this addressed, and you have to design your part to be a little bit robust. Okay, that is the basics of how to lay out batching. If you have a bunch of parts on the print bed, make sure there's a couple spares for the little tiny ones that can get lost. However, you should not have them all on the print bed. If you want to print a ton of little parts, it's fine, but design them as a single model like this. Now, rather than having to deal with a pile of little parts like this is what comes off the print bed. This is better from a QC standpoint because a person can look at this plate and say, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. I'm going to compare it to the 3D model. Oh, it's a square of 12 by 12. Cool. Well, there's one knocked off right there, so we're missing one. That's a thing to flag, hey, we need to reprint this or something along those lines. It's much better than looking at a pile of parts. You also have this raft, so you know it's a really consistent first layer on your parts so you can get better part quality out of it. And it is also better for your customer because your customer, instead of getting a bag full of parts, gets this nice little plate to where they can just knock off individual pieces. Now, we have an entire video talking about how to design these sorts of batches over on the Core Slant 3D channel. We recommend going over and checking that out because it is a really good one. But yes, it allows you to contain this 100 parts so people can just pop them off one at a time as they need them pretty darn readily. And you can change how easy they pop off by changing the spacing. We recommend 0.2. Do make sure that you're using rounded edges or even a circle for this type of stuff, but this will allow you to take what is otherwise a nightmare tray of parts and make it a nice ordered kind of display plate for the parts. And there's ways to push that even a little bit further here. Over on the other video, again, we talk about this in detail, but you can use this bottom plate, this sheet, to actually become a labeler for your parts. So like right here, we have a little outline piece right there to show, hey, there's supposed to be a piece right there, which can help your users understand how many are available. And then you can also put in numbering so that, hey, this is part number 1, which goes into part number 2, and so on, which again helps your users. So if you want to build a really complex little model plane kit, use this because it helps with the instructions. You can also get really creative with this by like engraving thank you down on the bottom of this, or in this case, we put it on the top and just had the parts underneath it. There's a thank you in cursive written right there, which is a little bit small, but you can create basically notes inside with your products that otherwise wouldn't be possible. So rather than creating this sort of nightmare where you have a batch of parts on a plate that can fail really readily, will eventually become more expensive because we're gonna upgrade Teleport to deal with these sorts of things, and turns into a bad experience for QC, a bad experience for your users, just put stuff onto a raft inside of a designed raft. You can use something like 3D Builder. Again, check the other video, we talk about it in detail. Then you can group as many as you want. This effectively becomes one single file, which is really nice and clean, prints really reliably, and has a much better experience for your customers. So, if you want to do batching right on Teleport, don't upload 100 parts or a dozen parts. We recommend that if you have like some core piece and then you have a couple of little accessories that go with it, basically max out at like 5 pieces on the build plate. If you have more than 5 pieces, you need to be using at least a raft, or ideally splitting those pieces into separate files that are then printed individually and put together. Because if you put them all onto one single build plate that takes 24 or 48 hours to print, then your order processing time will also increase, because since it will fail more often, it will potentially need to be reprinted again. So instead of taking 1 or 2 days to print, because it takes 48 hours to turn around, it could take 4 or 5 days to print. So this is much better if you have a large number of small parts. If you have a large number of large parts, spread them between different files, or max out at like 2, 3, 4 files max on a single build plate. Hopefully that helps you to use Teleport a little bit more effectively. And as I say, again, this is a warning to you, because the people who are gaming the system right now and putting like 10 large pieces on a build plate, they will eventually get an increased pricing on that will match the individual file format, because there's a higher failure rate, higher processing time, and just more risk within the files as a whole from a post-processing and QC standpoint. You get better quality files if they are able to be printed one at a time. So make them one. Have a great day, everybody.